I know I always run on about this at the start of my reviews, but they actually gave this episode a good poster. This got me excited to watch the episode instead of thinking about what I'd rather be doing with my spare time. Something I found out after writing last week's review is that the actress who plays Cass, Sophie Stone, is actually deaf. What I first assumed was just acting is actually how the actress behaves. I'll now pass you over to Maureen as she has a little speech for you all before we get started.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
The episode starts just the way episode 4 started last series, with a monologue. I love these little talks from Capaldi. They remind me of his great acting capabilities and humour. The Doctor told me to look up the bootstrap paradox, so I've googled it for you all in case you haven't done so already. And look, the media has already gone nuts and written articles about this stuff, but I'm just going to good old Wikipedia for my answers, thank you very much. So what I can gather is that an event that happened in the past was fulfilled by a person from the future, despite the future person believing that the event was fulfilled by a person from the past. Like the Doctor claiming to have written all of Beethoven's works on his electric guitar. This comes full circle at the end of the episode because the Doctor stopped the Fisher King using the same principle. I'll talk about it more when I get there. Anyway, I think this opening was cracking, and just to top it off, if you look at the Doctor's amplifier, we can see that it has Magpie written on the side. A little callback maybe to Series 2 episode The Idiot's Lantern, where the owner of the TV shop shares the same name. The title sequence rolls in and has an electric guitar playing as part of the theme. This sounds great. I just wish the main melody was a guitar solo or something. I mean, for God's sake, people on the YouTube have been doing it for ages. O'Donnell then says she was demoted for dangling somebody out of a window. I think this running gag was quite funny. She also mentions a Minister of War though, which the Doctor has yet to find out about. This sounds really interesting and I can't wait to see what it is all about. She also geeks out about the TARDIS being bigger on the inside, and I'd probably react the same way if I went inside the Doctor's TARDIS for the first time too. We find that the Doctor is in Scotland in 1980, yet we're apparently at the pinnacle of the Cold War, and so the whole town has been converted into a Russian one? But did they really need to go so overboard on this little town's design? Also, why hasn't the TARDIS translated the signs all over town into English? When we find the spaceship, I seem to remember the design being a lot longer in the underwater base. That might be a problem with my perception or something, but it just looked quite funny when I saw it for the first time on tonight's episode. We find the spaceship is actually a hearse, and the funeral director is taking the Fisher King to this town under the pretense that he'll be buried there. Prentice is in fact from Tivoli, the same planet Gibbous is from, played by David Walliams back in Series 6's episode The God Complex. I wouldn't have minded a little more originality behind the character here, but both this episode and The God Complex were written by Toby Whithouse, and it's not exactly like they're identical characters either. I also realise now that I said his name wrong last week, so I do apologise for that too. Another little factoid for any Game of Thrones fans, Prentice is played by the same actor who played Thoros of Myr in Series 3. Back at the drum, we find that the Doctor's ghost is mouthing their names in sequence. The real Doctor and Clara then have a chat on her iPhone, and I can't help but cringe at this FaceTime scenario we have going on here. I just dislike that Clara's camera quality is so high for a shitty iPhone. Look at this full HD shot here. No way would an iPhone's interior camera look this stunning without at least 20 Instagram filters. Whilst they're in conversation, Clara then gets all pissy about him leaving, and when I previously thought we'd crossed this bridge and not looked back, it turns out we need to once again remind ourselves of Clara's selfish attitude. She really is so unable to see the bigger picture in that the Doctor had all of this sussed from the moment they left the TARDIS last week. I would have appreciated it if the Doctor could have given her a little reassurance that everything is under control, but then we wouldn't have much tension for us as an audience. I would rather suffer through Clara's whining for about 5 minutes if it makes us believe the Doctor isn't in control and doesn't quite know what he's doing. But he did know what he was doing all along anyway, so I guess it was all for nothing.
You. Yes, me.
Prentice then gets killed and we see the Ghost Doctor's shirt is ripped. He then enters the room with Clara and co, whilst the living Doctor has a rather amusing conversation with himself. It's interesting the choice of language used here is reminiscent of almost everybody that knows who the Doctor is, but has never met him. After they hang up, the Doctor tells O'Donnell to stay in the TARDIS because he knows she's next. But her strong, independent woman attitude gets the better of her and results in her death by leaving the TARDIS. When they return to the ship, we have this really cool reverse shot of the three upon hearing the sound of the Fisher's cry. They then run into the building in search of the Fisher King, and for some reason O'Donnell thinks it's a good idea to split up, without any explanation either. If Bennett really gave a shit about her, he would not be apart from her in an abandoned building with a fearsome alien warlord going around killing people. The scene in which they find O'Donnell's corpse is quite emotional, albeit a short one. The music works well with her performance, however the elephant in the room in this scene is Bennett. He might as well be a piece of cardboard in this scene. No tears, no emotion whatsoever. The only interesting part of this scene is that there is some tension between him and the Doctor. If his performance was more convincing, however, I would be more inclined to believe that he honestly meant what he was saying. I know it's in his character as the skeptical science guy to not be very emotional, but everyone has their breaking point, and your friend has just died!
Oh, no. No. Oh, no, don't you dare. Don't you dare.
It's the motherfucking Eagle Double G.
Snoop Dogg.
You know I'm mobbing with the D.R.E.
The Doctor then gets caught in his own time stream, and the show completely rips off yet another earlier episode of Who back in 2005, Father's Day. Could this season get any cheaper? Back at the drum, Clara needs her phone back because damages aren't part of her £35 a month contract. She figures out that Lunn is the best candidate for the retrieval of the phone. The couple-to-be then freak out about it because apparently survival of the fittest offends them, despite Clara is trying to establish contact with the Doctor again. The Doctor goes down into some basement to talk to the Fisher King, who is performed by one of the giants in Game of Thrones, screamed by Corey Taylor, and voiced by Peter Serafinowicz. I think the biggest highlight of the episode comes from this beast that comes out of the shadows. He is absolutely beautiful. I really appreciate that he was designed and not just created out of thin air by CGI. He is extremely intimidating and awesome to look at, but at the same time I feel he is severely underappreciated. He isn't fully revealed until over the halfway mark of the episode itself, and I really wanted to see how powerful he could be. Instead, he just stomps around very slowly, blasts a few things and not a lot else. If this had been revealed at the end of the last episode, I would have been a lot happier, as this gives us more time to flesh out the villain. The dialogue between the Fisher King and the Doctor, however, is very well written and had me wanting more and more to happen between the two, but unfortunately it doesn't. Lunn then starts walking down some corridors in search of Clara's phone. He is greeted by the ghosts and the lights start flickering for some reason. He grabs the phone whilst Clara and Cass come looking for him. For another unknown reason, Cass abandons Clara, who then says this:
I'm an idiot.
Couldn't have put it better myself, love. We then have a very interesting segment where we are put into the audio perspective of Cass, in which we cut back and forth from her and the Scraping Axe ghost. This once again illustrates how well this character is integrated into the story. This section is tension building through the silence, as well as interesting to watch, as we feel like shouting, "It's behind you!" in a pantomime-like fashion, yet she will never hear us. She has become helpless, but uses her enhanced feeling ability to identify the ghost's location. This sequence is really well designed, and it's a shame she doesn't use this ability more often. Back in 1980, the Doctor blows up the dam with one of those battery things and gets inside the coffin. The water then comes crashing down, it all looks beautiful, until the Fisher King is moved out of the shot when he is washed away. This looks hilarious and could have been prevented if they animated his death in a better way. Why didn't you guys try an aerial shot or something? Even I can animate something past the screen like that. It's revealed that the Doctor's ghost was a predetermined hologram designed by the Doctor. It all seems a little too convenient for me though, considering you would need to know exactly where the ghosts would be at exact points in time in order for it to seem like a genuine ghost. If this was the case, was he controlling them whilst he was in the stasis chamber? I thought he was frozen the entire time, so how could he have done that? It's the same "the Doctor knew everything about the situation he was in all the while" cliche as last week. week. I hope it's not used again after the next fortnight's episodes. Having said that, the first of next week's episodes is written by Jamie Mathieson, writer of my favourite episode from Series 8, Flatline. So I've got high hopes that it won't be shit, despite the trailer gives off a very shitty vibe about it. Bennett is left watching the ghost of his dead lover, and he is still behaving like a sheet of cardboard, moping and complaining without any facial expressions. Cass and Lund then describe their deepest, darkest feelings about each other in sign language and kiss. Back in the TARDIS, the Doctor and Clara have this very uninteresting explanation of the events that the Doctor had put in motion. This scene could have been shot in a more interesting way, maybe have some shots of him actually planning out what he was doing instead of just the two of them having conversation. I'm glad the explanation is here, it's just shot in a really boring fashion. Then the episode ends with the Doctor going back to the whole Beethoven thing, and the opening doesn't seem as pointless as we all initially thought. So, did it suck? I'm going to give this episode a 6 out of 10 because I think the good and bad are sort of conflictive, but the episode itself was enjoyable. We have a great opening, great dialogue, and some beautiful design work going on here, but there's also bad acting and wasted potential, mainly deriving from our villain that didn't get fleshed out as much as I would have liked. I did enjoy the story, however, and I'd like to see more episodes of this kind of standard in the future. Were written by Toby Whitehouse, and it's fuck. And it's not exactly like we're... Jesus, what the fuck? I also realise now that I said his name... Oh my god. Fuck this shit again. But both this... Ben is left what... Ben? Who's Ben? We have this... When that... Meh! I cannot talk today.